Welcome to the last collective worship for this school year. Let's start by greeting each other with peace. Peace be with you. And now I'm going to light our virtual candle to give us a moment to get ready for a time of reflection. Now, I hope you're sitting comfortably. What do you think of change? Does it make you really excited and you're looking forward to something new and it's brilliant? Or maybe it makes you a bit worried when you think things aren't going to be the same anymore and you get a bit nervous. As we come to the end of term, things are going to change. You're going to be leaving your teacher and saying goodbye and leaving your classroom, and when you come back in September, you'll be with a new teacher in a new classroom and it'll be a bit different. And other people are going to be leaving the school altogether. When they go back to school in September, they'll be going to a new school and they'll make new friends and new teachers. And maybe some of you are really looking forward to that, and some of you are a bit nervous. Sometimes we can hardly wait for things to change. And other times we think, oh no, I'm dreading it. How am I going to cope? What am I going to do? What's it going to be like? Well, today's collective worship, I'm going to share with you a story from the Bible about Abraham and Sarah. And they had a lot of change in their life. Over their life, they made journeys, they moved house, they had all sorts of changes. But through those changes and those journeys, they discovered that God was with them on the way and that they learnt more about God throughout their life. And the story is told in a reflective style. And at the end, it asks you to wonder. It invites you to wonder about what you think the best bit of the story is, or which bit of the story you think is most important. And even to wonder about where you might be in the story, which part of it is about you. So there's no right or wrong answer to wondering, because it's what you think and what you feel. Maybe if you've got time, you could pause the video and share some of your wondering with the rest of the class and see what they thought and what they wondered. So here is the story of Abraham and Sarah. This is the desert. Not the whole desert, just a part of it. So many important things happened in the desert. It is good to know what it's like. Desert is a dangerous place. There's not much water, so not much grows and there's very little food. When the wind blows, everything moves and it's easy to get lost. At night it's cold, and by day the sun is scorching hot. Close to the beginning of time, people began to gather along the great rivers at the edges of the desert. They built villages and towns that grew into cities. And was one of the great cities. The people in they thought there were lots of gods. A god for the river, a god for this tree, a god for that tree. But there was one family, and they believed that there was one God for everything. Abraham and Sarai were part of this family. God came close to Abraham, and Abraham was close to God. Abraham knew God wanted him to move, so he packed up all of his things. Abram and Sarai set off along the great river Euphrates with all their helpers and all their animals. The river showed them the way and gave them water to drink. It was a long way, and they weren't sure the God they believed in would be there. As they came near to Haran, they saw people coming out, and they knew their journey was almost over. And in Haran, God came close to Abram. Abram came close to God. Abram knew he had to move again. So Abram and Sarai and all their helpers and their animals went west out across the desert. There was no river to show them the way or give them water. But eventually they came to Canaan, and God came close to Abram. Abram came close to God. And Abram knew they had to move on again. So Abram and Sarai carried on their journey. When they came to a place called Shechem, Abram walked out up a hill. God came close to Abram. Abram came close to God. And Abram knew that God was in this place too. So he took some rocks and marked the place. And then Sarai and Abram carried on their journey. And they came to Bethel. And God came close to Abram, and Abram came close to God. And Abram knew God was in that place too. And he built some rocks up to mark that place. And Sarai and Abram carried on their journey, and they got to Hebron, and at the Oaks of Mamre they built their home. Abram went out into the desert, and God came close to Abram. Abram came close to God. And Abram knew God was in every place. The same God was everywhere. And he heard God saying, Abram, you will be the father of a great nation. Sarai will be the mother. This nation will be great, as many as the stars in the sky, and as many as the grains of sand in the desert. Abram laughed. He was too old, and Sarai was too old. But God said to change their name anyway. Abram became Abraham, and Sarai became Sarah. Later, 3 strangers came out of the desert. Sarai took 3 measures of bread, which was a lot, and she offered them bread and milk and water as their custom. And the strangers said to Abraham, you will be a father, and Sarah will be a mother. And Abraham laughed, because he was too old. And Sarah, by the entrance to the tent, she laughed too. But Sarah and Abraham did have a baby, and they laughed again, and they called their baby son Isaac, which means laughter in their language. And Isaac grew and became a man. And Sarah, she was now very old. And she died. And they buried her in a cave by the oak trees. Abraham knew he had one more thing to do and sent his trusted servant back to his people. And at the well, the servant met Rebecca, who was kind and gave them water for him and the camels and invited them to her home. And Rebecca and her family heard about the great family, about Abraham and Sarah and Isaac. And Rebecca was courageous as well as kind and wanted to be part of this great family. So she set off across the desert. And Isaac came to meet her. And when Isaac and Rebecca met, they were married. Now, Abraham was very old, full of years, and he also died. And they buried him with Sarah at the oak trees. Now Isaac and Rebecca, they had children, and their children's children had children, and their children's children had children. And so it continued for thousands and thousands of years until our parents had children. And now we are part of that great family, great as the number of stars in the sky and as the grains of sand in the desert. I wonder what is the best bit of this story. I wonder which is the most important part of this story. I wonder where you are in this story, or which bit is about you. I wonder, could we take away one part and still have all the story we need? I wonder. The story of Abraham and Sarah was one of change, but they found that God was with them. As things changed, as they travelled and as they journeyed, they found that God was with them wherever they went. And God will be with you. Whatever changes that you're looking forward to and whatever changes you're a bit nervous about, God will be with you. And now I'm going to finish the collective worship with a short prayer. As always, you can say Amen at the end if you'd like it to be a prayer for you. But if you're unsure about prayer, you can just use the words for some reflection. Loving God, be with us as we travel through life. When the way is clear and we know where we're going, like Abraham and Sarah walking along the river, then let us know that you are with us. And when the way is difficult and hard and there's no obvious path to follow, like Abraham and Sarah walking across the desert, then let us know that you are with us. And when we pause, help us to know you are there and come close to you. Be with us every day and on every journey. Amen. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful summer holiday, and whatever changes happen, I hope that you enjoy them. Goodbye.